am a local resident. I moved into the area in the early 1980s. I like to think of myself as the early phase of the gentrification that George was talking about early on. I've been retired for about 20 years and have worked very much within the local community in a number of ways. And I'd like to endorse what George said about the state of the community in the early 90s and the impact of the tobacco factory on, and if you like, raising that. It's chicken and egg, isn't it? The area began to become gentrified and at the same time there were developments. It's difficult to know which one kicked off which, but they worked very much on each other. But I'd also like to mention some of the activities that were going on before the tobacco factory came along. We're quite well known for our community activities. Wimhill City Farm has been going for more than 30 years now. That was probably the earliest of the really significant community developments in this general area. Southall Centre was very important, opened in 1991, it's been open for more than 20 years, and a lot of the activity in the area, a lot of the linking up between groups and the establishment of things like the annual arts trail, which has been going for 10 years or so, all of those sorts of linkages with people running green spaces, linkages with people running groups involved around older people. A lot of that came out of the community development work led by the Southall Community Development Association, which is the body that runs the Southall Centre. Also, Neil is here from the Actor Centre. Again, came along, what, 15 years ago? 12. 12, there we A new organisation, but making very, very important impact in the area. Linkage, Debbie is sitting out. I won't go through everybody because there are lots of people here that are connected with groups that work together. And one of the major catalysts for working together was the establishment in, I think it was 2008, could have been the year before that, of neighbourhood partnerships across the city. 14 of them were established. Their role is still very unclear. And they operate quite differently in different parts of the city. The council has never quite got its head round what it's created. But I like to think that in our area, the Greater Bedminster Community Partnership has actually established itself as an organisation with its own personality and not just an extension of the City Council. It's part of the point, in fact, that Amy was making earlier on and that George referred to, talking about partnership. I think what happens in places is that structures are imposed and sometimes people accept that. But most of the time they react in two ways. One, they ignore it, and two, they subvert it. I'm a subverter, and I think we've subverted it reasonably well in this area. So the neighbourhood, I'm the secretary of the neighbourhood partnership. The neighbourhood partnership is not a neighbourhood, 24,000 people, it's a small town. And we are, some of us are talking about possibly going for small town status at some point. But that's for another meeting. The partnership itself has, I guess, something like 80 or 90, 100 organisations which are partners in the partnership. Some of those are statutory bodies, the police, the local authority, various departments of the local authority. Increasingly we're relating to the business community, but most of the organisations are community-based organisations. Large ones, such as some of the ones that I've mentioned already, but also very small ones, residents' associations in individual streets, park support groups, and so on. And I think of it largely as a sort of dating agency. Part of my job and the job of other people who are active in the place is to put people together. Example, yesterday afternoon, put two people together, put the Business Improvement District and a new active organisation locally called Incredible Edible Bristol, trying to set up a local group for BS3. It happens that our good friends in the City Council have put some big planting boxes in each street. It also happens that they asked us, would we like them to look after them, and said it would cost us £4 grand a year. No, thank you, we said. We will do that ourselves. And we've now, I think, fingers crossed, got a group of people, local people, who will plant edible things in these boxes so people can pick raspberries as they go by, or whatever is growing there. And it will draw the community together in a very meaningful sort of way, and it won't cost us any money. Why did the Neighbourhood Partnership interest itself in high streets? I think there were two reasons, or even three. I can't always count. Three reasons. One, clearly, the high streets for us are sources of goods and services within walking, cycling distance of that 24,000 people and the various people who come into our area at different times. The alternative, no high streets or collapsed high streets or inadequate high streets, is that you've got to jump into cars and drive somewhere else and all that sort of stuff. Clearly, that's a pain in itself, but if you don't have to have access to it, if you're an older person, for example, then that's a really major loss. So it's very much an issue that we wanted to keep those goods and services readily available. The second issue was, of course, that they are major sources of employment. Collectively, the high streets from Bedminster Parade to the beer factory, not forgetting West Street, which is a junction off. Steph is a leading figure in WOW. WOW is way out west. That's a group of organisations working very closely together to improve the West Street area. But those retail streets, 400 businesses, major source of employment, probably the biggest single employer collectively for the whole of South Bristol. So that was very important to us. The third reason why it was very important is the point that the Mayor made, that it's where community happens. It's where you actually meet people. It's where you bump into people. It's where you say, oh, well, let's go for a cup of coffee. Shall we go to the lounge? Shall we go to the Hennessy's? I mean, there's no shortage of very good coffee places in the area. So it's a good place for people meeting each other and making friends and social capital and all those sorts of things. So for those three reasons, we wanted to support the high street. We didn't really know how to do that. We'd run a few projects. We knew a few of the business people, but we didn't know them very well. And then a couple of years ago now, George Grace came to see me, said, there's the possibility of some money. Do you think we should fill this form in and see if we can get some money from the Mary Porter's Fund? And we chatted. We were in the South Centre doing that. We chatted about that. It seemed like a good idea. And I remember one of the things that George said was he'd already taken this idea to 2 or 3 other places in the city, and they'd said things like, "Oh, that's quite difficult. We'll need to consult lots of people." I didn't say that. I said, yes, we'll do that. We'll fill this form in, and obviously we'll tell people that we've got this application in, but no one's going to object. If we don't get the money, so if we get £100,000, who's going to complain? And that was right. So we actually got on with it. We put the application in. And the rest, as they say, is history. I'm going to stop at that point and introduce Simon, because Simon is a local representative of the business. He's actually the chair of the Business Improvement District, very active during the phase of Mary Portas, and he's going to talk a little bit about what we did from the business perspective. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Ben.